What's up, podcasters? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Branding Banter, your promo product podcast where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
I'm Meg Gerber, Director of Sales over at Proforma.
I'm Sarah Goshgarian Unruh. Gosh, I tripped over my own name. National Sales Manager with Stalls. Blah, 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 blah. Happy
2024 is almost over, Sarah. It's almost over.
Woo.
All right. Well, we're joined today by a very special guest, Nate, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to say the last name for me.
Kuzma.
That's it. That's the one. All right. We are joined today by Nate from ASI, and super excited to have you on. We're going to sort of talk about 2024 year in review. We love to do this episode at the very end of the year, our last episode for the year. And I think having you on with us is a really exciting one because we've actually got some sort of unofficial early data, if you will. But before we launch into that, Nate, why don't you just give the listeners just a quick briefing or a background on yourself?
Yes, so I'm the head of research at ASI. I do, countless market research studies with our members, with people in the industry, with suppliers, distributors. Been in the industry with ASI for just under 11 years now. Been in a variety of roles at ASI, but it's always been very much research-based. Came from way outside of the industry, just like everybody else who joins the promo industry. Had no idea about the promo industry till you actually join it. But I've been lucky enough to be paired with some of the best people I could imagine at ASI in the media division there, and throughout the company. That early on I was able to get my feet underneath me, and now I feel like the content that we're able to produce, and also like the findings that we're able to do to really inform the industry, really is absolutely top notch.
That's awesome. I know you and I went into depth at Power Summit, and I was like, I learned so much in that afternoon. I was just really excited to bring you on to the show if we could share it with everybody else.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is episode 51, which is pretty awesome. I'm still trying to figure out the numbers because we started this podcast like at PPAI Expo last year, and I guess that's the reason why, because we do one every week.
Like a couple of weeks.
And we had one extra too. So, I mean, I'm like, how's this only 51? But yeah. All right. Well, super excited. It's been a fun-filled year, for the podcast, for the industry, and as a whole. So where do we want to start? Do we have some very interesting, what was most interesting about the year of 2024, Nate?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting the way the year shaped out. It got started, like the Q1 was challenging. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, it was one of the first periods of time, one of the first quarters post-COVID, that we actually saw the industry decline a bit year over year. And I don't think anybody was necessarily expecting that. Q4 last year wasn't great, so I thought that there might have been a bit of a pickup, and that didn't happen. And what we saw was a kind of the momentum with the industry kind of grew throughout. Q2 was a little bit better than Q3 was a little bit better. That was actually up just about 4% in Q3. So therefore, you're thinking, okay, great, you're seeing a trend as it's going to continue to go up. Not really sure that that's happened. What we're anecdotally hearing is that Q4 is challenging. I think if you look at what's sort of gone on, I feel like the entire year was people, and I mean businesses, waiting for something to happen. When this happens, all of a sudden it'll free up. Business will open up. When the election's over, that will free up. As long as there's no uncertainty. There was no uncertainty. It didn't really free up. When we understand what the Fed is doing, that'll help loosen things up. Didn't really happen. So I just feel like it was a year with everybody just kind of waiting on the edge, and saying, okay, after this happens, it'll open up and business will start flowing freely again. From everything that I'm hearing, that's not really happening right now.
I heard the Fed is backtracking. Is that true? Did anybody else hear that?
Mm-mm. I'm in the crypto world right now, and it's very good. That's all I know right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what everyone else is doing.
See, I should have got you an NFT for Christmas, Meg. Next year, I'm going to make my own NFT and send that to you. That's going to be your Christmas gift.
There you go.
Make your own cryptocurrency. That's even better way to do it.
Listen, there's some crazy coins out there right now. I'm 10x, 20x. So yeah, you can roll your eyes, but I paid off all my debt.
You're talking about Fart Coin? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about TIT. That's the name of it. Swear to God.
Well, there's
And
one
thought.
called Fart Coin. Apparently going very well.
I know.
We are just
Anyway.
a world full of immature idiots.
Listen, we get money off of those idiots.
Always.
All right. Well,
Anyway, where were we? Sorry. Crypto, promotional product, same world. I'm back.
well, the other thing is that, so like I've noticed gas is starting to come down a little bit. So
Mhm.
you would expect, the rest of things to go down. But, the thing that I think we've gotten hit with the hardest is food. It's amazing.
yes.
I have this conversation multiple times a week. You go into a convenience store and you get an energy drink and a meat stick or something, and it's like $12. And it's like, holy crap. Do you remember Subway's like $5 footlong?
Yeah.
Well, they're like $14 now.
Oh, a Happy Meal is like $12.
So, as long as people are feeling that kind of pressure,
Yeah.
in their wallet, there's just a lot of uncertainty. And I think, prices of things need to stabilize and come back to freaking normal range before, that uncertainty sort of goes away, I think. But
Yeah, it's like everything, you see like prices go up a lot faster than they ever come down. And that is, I think that's holding true right about now.
oh yeah.
So when we talk about inflation, like from an industry perspective, how has the inflation then, do you think that's what has affected our soft year, if you will?
I don't know that I think inflation in many ways, when you look at like overall sales, like if you compare now, I saw a statistic and I just happened to look, stumble upon this, that the price of items, even though you hear inflation up 3%, 2.7%, whatever it is. I mean, if you go back to like pre-COVID, inflation numbers are up like 20, 25% for overall cost. And in some cases, I would imagine prices are a lot higher than even that, right? I think activity in the industry overall, relative to where it was, even though like sales numbers, we actually set a record last year in terms of overall sales in the industry at just over $26 billion. But that's with a huge bump up in terms of inflationary costs, right? So like the money is still there, the amount of business is still there, but that's taking into account that we've had also 20%, 15, 20% nationwide inflation over that period. So I think that while the sales numbers have actually, improved a bit, overall business activity, I still think has ways to go. I still think there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah, I think the volume is down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So what were some of the trends that you saw in the beginning of the year that maybe you thought this is going to be it, and then they were end up being just duds, or vice versa? Like, was there something out there you're like, there's no way this is going to be amazing, and end up being like fabulous,
Yeah, it's interesting the way that it worked out, right? So some of the things that we saw was growth, and whether or not the industry was growing or declining wasn't across the board, right? We look at what distributors by overall like revenue are doing the best and worst over the course of the year, and what we saw was in the Q2 of the second quarter, what we call large distributors, those who are like under like $1 to $5 million a year in overall sales, which make up a good part of the industry, they were hurting. They had a really bad Q2. So in other words, while the other size, the smaller distributors or the really, really large distributors, while they were actually growing at a faster rate, what you had was this group right in the middle that were actually sort of depressing the overall industry. What you saw in Q3 was that actually reversed. So the overall industry didn't grow as fast, but those large distributors, those where they might be dealing with the larger corporations, right? Maybe some large or very large mid-sized businesses, as much of an oxymoron as that is, but that's really what they're dealing with. So they had a really good Q3. So they actually really helped drive the overall industry. For Q4, what I'm just saying is like it's sort of like overall across the board, it's just things are not, they didn't follow that trend. I love when things are trending up or even trending down, to be honest with you, because it makes sense when you sort of see these dips, or even these potential dips. We'll know in about two to 3 weeks what happened for 2024. That's that's a little concerning, because again, I don't know that there's all that much. The stock market hates uncertainty, right? That's really, if you want to figure out exactly what drives it, it's that there's things that are uncertain in this world, but some of the bigger things that I think people were afraid of have come to pass.
Yeah. So one of the things I know, I feel like came up a lot from our conversations this year was M&A. So how much M&A would you say affected the sales numbers?
I don't know that necessarily affected the sales numbers. It certainly made some companies really, really big.
Yeah.
And you've also, and we don't actually measure this specifically as it relates to the North American sales numbers, but you've also had more M&A activity going over into Europe as well.
Yeah.
When we go to PSI and I talk, we just released our European sales estimates a couple of months ago for 2023, and we're going to be working on them again shortly for 24. You do see this, and it's not that people are like, rah or scared of it. It's just a fact that you're seeing now more North American companies looking to expand over into Europe because they're seeing that as maybe the potential for some of the fastest growth. So I don't know that M&A is necessarily driving, positives or negatives in the industry, but man, it's making some companies really, really big.
I think it's very similar to the stock market of what you said, like of how we look at uncertainty, right? If you want to ever seen it, like pay attention, I think it's the same thing. I think a lot of the M&A, it just created like uncertainties as to what was going to happen.
Sure.
And what is happening, right? Because people were getting larger that you didn't expect were all of a sudden going to get much larger. So, and then to your point, the overseas growth is just exponential.
Yeah, I think that's going to continue. And if you want, like my personal, that is going to continue. Like that's going to continue, and that's going to pick up just because I just think that that's a natural evolution of where we're going to be going.
It has been an odd year because, and I don't know if it's been this way in years past, but I certainly don't feel like it has been, at least not as much as it has this year with the whole, measuring sales volume by quarter so much, or it having that much of an influence on how things are being read. Usually you just have slow, steady growth or, minor dips or something like that. And it feels like this year has been, big spurts and big drops. Q2 certainly was a little bit rougher for us, and then Q3 was great, and Q4 and Q1 were kind of even or slight growth. So I mean, I think overall we're going to end up, but it's been, could have very easily gone the other way.
Sure.
Yeah, I know. Just looking at our numbers, we had a huge December last year too, right? And a huge November. So we're trying to beat those numbers. Overall, I think we've been up double digits. I have QBRs with our vendors, and some of them, I will say the look on their faces was pretty consistent across vendors, right? There was not a vendor that was out there and that was like, we are up 50%, drilling it, doing it, killing it, X, Y, Z. And it would be like, all right, well, what are you hearing from the industry? And, it was really the same. It was that we're either flat or up very little. And most of the distributors are down that we're dealing with. So it was really interesting to hear that. And I think it comes down to, we are a commodity industry for the most part, right? You can buy a lot of this stuff from 90 different people, right? Who you have the relationship with, who do you like, know, and trust. And there was something else I was going to add to that. Sorry, I'm like swirling things over here. I think it's just important that we really focus on having like solution-based opportunities to grow and finding that differentiator. And instead, we've been as an industry, very lazy. I think on the last podcast, we even said we're the worst when it comes to selling promo. We don't use promo to sell promo. We just tell people about the promo. So I think halfway through, or maybe there was something that switched with a lot of people that's like, okay, we can't just go keep throwing stuff at the wall and saying, hey, look, here's the best new mug, or here's the best new pen, and just shoving product down people's throats, because it's not what they need. They need someone to say, hey, I've recognized and identified these common pain points and challenges in your industry and at your company, and this is why I have positioned myself as the expert, and this is why I'm uniquely qualified to solve your problems. I don't think there's enough people out there that are willing to do that and willing to go the extra mile, but the people who are, they're the ones that are winning. They're the ones that are re-engaging, they're prospecting, they're following up, they're doing all the things, and it's growing their pipeline. It's not that debt. You can't just expect the orders to come to you anymore. And if there's customers that you haven't spoken to in 90 days or more, forget about it. Those are former customers. Those are people that are already being engaged with somebody else. So I think there's a lot of evolving and adapting, and it's like, all right, the old way isn't working anymore. We dealt with this through COVID, Jeff, right? Everything was different. You had to really stand out. You had to be different. Otherwise, like, man, there was no sales. We had to become experts in PPE and hand sanitizer. Oh God, I'm so glad we aren't doing that anymore. But, right?
Like PTSD. What are we doing? No.
I know. And it's like, as an industry, we adapted, we evolved to the times. We became that hero. I kept saying the same quote over and over again from Julie's, right? When they're all down in the where they're looking for the gold, and then the bucket comes down, and he's like, "It's our time, right? It's all over the minute you ride up in Troy's bucket." But I'm like, it's our time to be heroes. Like, we have access to all this stuff, and it's like, now we can grow these relationships. So we went through COVID, we went through all the supply chains, we went through logistics issues, pricing, everything. Our industry is so resilient, and now it's like, okay, we're just waiting for the next thing to happen so that we can figure it out. You got to stop waiting. When everybody else is sitting back waiting, other people are being proactive. They're being ideation. They're being forward thinking. I mean, there's just so many people in this industry that are really killing it. And then there's a lot of people that are like, I'm out there calling people. I'm prospecting. I hit 35 doors and I got 0 return. And I'm like, really? Let's go dial that. Like, what does that look like? What does your prospecting look like? So I know I went off on a tangent here, but I think it's the way some people are evolving and that other people are just waiting for the sales to come.
I'm just really happy that the word of the year isn't pivot. So
speaking of word of the year, I'm going to ask you guys this.
Back a little bit, but I am curious, Nate, from all of the data that you look at, what areas did you see any growth?
Yeah, so I think really what it's going to be is it's going to be very industry based. Like last year was a rough year for tech, just as an example. And I don't know that this year is going to be any better for tech. We do, as part of what we do is our research every quarter is we ask what industries tend to be, the growing the fastest, or which ones are most robust for business activity throughout the course of the quarter. And then at the end of the year, we actually kind of put a number behind that, right? So going back into last year, the leading industries, and they've been the leading industries for the past several years, have been like education and healthcare. They've been the top 2 industries going back, probably 10 or 12 years at this point, with education kind of always being number 1. And I don't know that I necessarily see that changing all that much. What I do think that we have seen is some industries such as like manufacturing improving, and construction, as that's been still fairly robust. Those have been 2 fairly strong industries, but ones that have, sort of like, suffered a little bit that I personally thought would have been, a little bit more robust would be things like hospitality. That has not been nearly as robust, even though prices for travel right now are still outrageously expensive.
Yeah.
You just, or real estate is another example of something that's really been suffering, just because I don't know, where about the rest of the country as much, but in the Northeast, there's almost no real estate activity. Like there's few homes that are for sale. And if they are, maybe they're selling, maybe they're not, but it's just sort of like has put a really damper on certain industries. Like, so, I mean, I don't think that the promo industry is very much, sort of like counter to the overall economy. When there's an economic sector of the U.S. that is suffering, it's a pretty good bet that the promo industry in that sector is also going to be suffering. And as I said, that was very evident last year as it related to the tech industry. And as you will start to see more, as you start to see like maybe some of this more return to the office activity. Like I know that AT&T just announced, and Amazon's hedging a little bit, but they're going to be pushing that. I think you're going to see that. I want to be curious if maybe, to what Meg was mentioning earlier, are those going to be opportunities for people in our industry to really put some ideas out there to some of their clients? Because employees aren't really going to be happy about having to come to the office 4 to 5 days a week. So whatever you can do to just sort of maybe soften that blow or make them feel appreciated or welcome, that might be a new opportunity that hasn't necessarily been there, God, for as long as I can remember. I don't know if I think you're going to start to see more of that within our industry. So I think that, that might be an opportunity moving forward. But again, it's whatever the strongest industries are, those are the ones that are really going to be driving it.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those like strategy shifts from a corporation standpoint to see if that helps get business back to the way that it once was, right? Of bringing a lot of employees in office versus them being remote. So I think it's just a strategy is my, it's one of those throwing spaghetti at the wall and let's see what happens, right? To see if that helps, business go back on track. So from a product centric standpoint, and I would imagine you guys, dial into those verticals as well. So
Yep.
apparel to headwear to the hard goods, drinkwares, are our standard categories still our strength from a category standpoint, or were there any shifts?
So we just came out, I think it was earlier this week, announced the ASI, or product of the year, so to speak, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
So last year was, in 2023, it was the Stanley tumbler, right? The Stanley mug. That was, omnipresent. Wherever you went, everybody saw it. Everybody was talking about it. They had social media campaigns. I mean, that kind of like in many ways helped that category really expand to over like 10% of the industry, which was for drinkware, which is really, really large. This year, we didn't pick anything quite as sexy as that per se, but what we chose it was actually a printed
Yard
product. It
signs.
was actually yard signs.
Yeah.
And if you've been anywhere in America, and I've been everywhere from New Jersey all the way as far west as you could go during this election cycle, and everywhere you went, it was political signs. It was a way that political signs are using to form people's identities and to shape neighborhoods and sort of. So when we were thinking about what was the what one promo product or what category out there really made the biggest impact on people's lives this year, that was really everywhere. And as I said, in 23 was the Stanley tumbler. This year, what was it? It was
Yard signs.
Yard signs. As crazy as that sounds, and we've had everything from PPE products, right, to I think one year we had the fidget spinner, if we remember when that was a thing.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
right. But
keep it in stock. I don't even know. And then talk about the bearings and all of the spinners. Like, was
We
there?
don't want that.
Yeah.
No, we don't. I don't think we. I think, although if it made a lot of money, maybe we do want it. We'll find out later
100%.
on. But I do think, though, what you're going to see is you're still seeing a lot of apparel. Like, apparel has been increasing in importance in this industry for years now. It used to be about a third of the industry, 33, 34%. And now it's well north of 40, 44%, 40, 45% of the industry. So all of the different types of apparel, whether you're just talking about like, your T-shirts and all of the different blends, or the trucker hats, the Richardsons or things like that, that's really what we've seen the biggest growth on. We'll see what it comes out when we actually start looking at that over the first quarter of 25. But I don't necessarily think there's going to be any gigantic shifts over what you've seen in the past, where T-shirts and polo shirts and drinkware are really some of the biggest categories.
I have some trivia. You guys want some trivia real quick?
Quickly, Meg, quickly.
All right. What is the percentage that the yard sign platform rose by since 2016? How much has it grown by, like a percentage-wise, since 2016?
Are we talking only during election years, or are we talking
during the 2024 election cycle? Searches. We'll do searches. Searches for yard signs on ASI's ESP platform rose by how many? How much percent since 2016?
Okay, I'm gonna say 100.
Nate's looking. Peter.
Slower than that.
Jeff.
Yeah, 43%.
Lower. Nate,
Yeah.
what do you have?
It was
What's
like
the actual?
it was right around like 29, 30%. I seem to remember.
That's what I
Okay.
have.
Gosh, I said 50 originally, and then I was like, it's got to be much higher than that. So I'm just gonna go 100. So wow. Okay.
But you know what I think part of that is also, I don't know that necessarily captures like the full breadth of how present those things were in everybody's life. Just because, it's yes, you can source them through ESP, but you can also source them through so many other places as well. Just because a lot of them are, when you talk about local political organizations and things like that, they kind of know where to go. But I just think the embrace of them by some of the political campaigns, especially on, one specific side of the aisle, so to speak, was something that I don't know that we've ever seen before.
Interesting. All right, one more. The use of political signage dates back to what president and or year? So if you can pick the president or the year for the presidential, candidate, you win.
It's way back.
Oh, it's
way back. I will give you a clue. It is about a century ago. So the year doesn't count now.
Roosevelt?
It was John Quincy Adams. He is accredited to introducing posters featuring his image and slogans on yard signs. So that is your nerdy news for today.
There we go.
Yeah. Nick, did you have anything else for us? I know we run over a little bit. Was there any other data or nerdy news you want to share?
No, just like, encourage people to check out what we have at asicentral.com/news or /research. We have it all there. We do have some fun projects coming up this year for end buyer research. And I encourage, if anybody is going to be in Orlando, to definitely try to look me up. Everybody at ASI will kind of know where to find me. And I look forward to talking to everybody again in 2025.
Awesome. I'll be at ASI as well. I'll be
Me
speaking,
too.
so-
I'll see you in Orlando.
Me as well.
Oh, get there.
We'll have to get together, so I'm looking forward to it.
Love
It'll
it.
be good. All right, Nate. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Until next time, we'll see you in 2025.